Welcome to the podcast, and this is a track I'm everyone's probably familiar with if they know my music sort of history. Because I am a big Song fan, and I talked about it even a few episodes ago, the new album. Let's go back a bit and look at it's probably actually just their greatest song ever made. It's actually crazy, and there are even details here that I missed before, somehow. As if the last 20 times I've listened to it, probably 30 actually now. It's like, I didn't notice this. But I fucking love this track. So, I don't know where to start. Because it's so hard to start, because everything's like a masterclass in everything. The bass is good, the drums are amazing, the guitars are amazing, the vocals are just... Jesus Christ. That's so good. Even lyrically and on the meaning itself, it is just so fucking good. Like, I didn't know the meaning before because I was kind of afraid to look into it, to be honest, because hearing the type it wants to be alone, it kind of makes me feel like I'm being called out. I looked into it and luckily it doesn't really apply to me, so that's definitely a good thing. But it's an interesting track either way. So it starts really interestingly with a cheesy sort of guitar riff, which certainly isn't how you expect a Hell the Sun song to start. And yeah, you're just not sure where it's going to go, and then it just goes into the verse. And there's these really interesting parts, like a descending sort of melody. It's just very interesting. I haven't seen many of those, to be honest, other than in metal, but outside of that, I've not seen many. You know, oftentimes they're following like a chord progression, but this one literally goes descending, which is really interesting. And then it's got this like little bridge part or pre-chorus rather, where it just sounds so good. It's really unique as well. It's also sort of descending too, I think. But I played this on guitar so many times, it's so fascinating to play. And then we go into the chorus, which is also very interesting. Lyrically at this point, basically about someone who's alone and wants affection all the time. Which is also, again, that sort of got it turned off a bit from this part comes in. Because I know instrumentally I love this song, but yeah. But the chorus, Euphoria, I try to keep the upper hand and you're far along. It's not hard to keep the upper hand when. Yeah, pretty good fucking rhyming there as well. The rhyming, technically and with hand, but that's not great. That's there twice, I think. But when with and, it's where it's interesting. So, that's great. It says, you say I still love you when I choose, knowing when to lose and let go. Euphoria. And then the most interesting part, which I'd never even noticed before, literally screams yeah. And that is a lyric in the song. I never even noticed that. Like, what the fuck? It's crazy because I do listen to vocals closely when I re-listen to some of these tracks. And I noticed that. Only when I saw the lyrics. I would have entirely missed that for the lyrics. And then patience is a virtue and falling short. Every time we disagree, I'm out the door. Pretty real. Although I've not been in a relationship like that ever. But I already know that from people I've met, like that's been a pretty common thing, and also you see it in media a lot. Well, media, but entertainment too. Then it goes into the pre-chorus, is it? Yeah, pre-chorus, yeah. You should not empower me or feed off the pain, tantrum tactic obstacles keep us both engaged all the same. So it's kind of like the desperate fight to keep that relationship going, even though there's no spark and the world seems to revolve around this person, which it goes without saying, although I probably have to explain it anyway. Solipsism means someone who is very self-centered or selfish. So you can probably tell. And that's exactly what the song is about. And then it goes into the chorus again, but a different timing, which I found really interesting. I think is it triplets or 60s? I think it's triplets because it doesn't sound as in the right sort of well, it's in the same BPM obviously, but the timing is very much not in line with that, I don't think. But it's very clever, I've got to admit. You probably just get the other found the same lyrics. Yeah, same lyrics as the other chorus. First one actually. But then we get into probably my favourite part of the song, which really just blows my mind every time. You got this like build up, sort of breakdowny part. Sort of goes into the outro riff, and the lyrics here are just amazing. I need to sculpt the way you feel to keep the spark alive and well. Again, the writing is just amazing. Because I never might be the one who sees the everlasting. I might never give the time it takes for our finessing. Again, amazing. And then we got the last two lyrics. I might never be the one who sees the everlasting. I might never give the time it takes for our finessing. Again, it just works so well. And on top of that, you got this amazing guitar riff, which, strangely enough, is like, it's also descending? Yeah, technically it is. It's like such a simple guitar riff. It's so catchy as well. And because of the effects as well, like the reverb and delay, it certainly adds on to that. It just gives you like this really unique feel at the end of the song. I've seen people in the comments of the YouTube tracks of these track versions, they're just complimenting the outro. Because yeah, it is one of the best outros ever. Yeah, absolutely love this song. Could I talk about other songs today? I guess I'll give a shout out to Domino as well. This Domino was quite unique. I probably need to listen to that again, but I remember having some interesting sort of variations on the, I'd say metal, but funk sort of genre. I remember it being a bit funky. Yeah. Anyway, I've gotta start doing my tasks again. So I've got a life hack, sort of. It's for music, mainly guitars. You could probably work with other instruments, but it's mainly for guitars, what I've made it for. I discovered this a long time ago, actually, because I played guitar since like 2014. And one of the problems I encountered when I transitioned to using jeans, rather than drawing bottoms, as we call them, just a stupid name. I fucking hate it. It's too British. That's the other reason. But yeah, the problem with jeans is it's just so slippery for guitars. So I had to address that somehow. And eventually I discovered that using my shirt, I can wrap the bottom around the cutaway and basically treat that as like sort of pulling sort of technique, so it keeps the guitar against me rather than slipping whenever I use it. And it served me really well for years. I've had barely any problems with it. It does slip out every now and then, but as long as you like tuck it underneath your flaps, although I don't know if you can do it if you're skinny. That's one of the things I don't think about. But yeah, you have to create that tension to keep it in place. That's the key there. So it's generally a good bit of advice for addressing that specifically, like guitar slip, basically. That's what I call it. But yeah, it really works. I do like this technique. Not sure really what else to add, like if there are any alternatives. I generally don't know, although I would say it probably also works if you can get something to put your foot on to do it, because I only just come up with this, by the way. But maybe like lifting your leg, like doing it on toes, or that gets tiring afterwards. Obviously find a step, or like a few books even you don't use anymore, don't want. Even like a recycled box, for example, and fill it with stuff, and you can literally have a footrest, and it keeps your guitar constantly on you rather than slipping, because there's now no way that with the friction on your leg or jeans, whatever you're wearing, it can't go up. So there you go, 2 for 1 there. So hopefully that helps people, helps guitarists and bassists, whoever else use a site that fits on your lap. I can't remember if I covered this, but I'll check quickly just in case. So yeah, another predatory YouTuber being revealed, or speedrunner. Okay, there were a few people. A content creator called Shay from Delta and Undertale speedruns apparently. To be honest, some of these are not really surprising when you know the character traits, because when it comes to dramas and controversies like this, there is a very common theme in that these people are, or tend to be anyway, complete arseholes behind the scenes, or sometimes even in front of everyone else. So there's a lot of that problem there, where obviously someone keeps the predatory behaviour to themselves. They don't admit it, obviously, because they've got something to hide. And that's dangerous for so many different reasons, because I think if you're a genuine and honest person, you'd confess to it, you'd admit to it. You know, I've certainly had my encounters with people where, admittedly, I've been a bit predatory. I wasn't abusive, that's different. If I was, I'd let myself in, I'd out myself out. Is that even the term? Yeah, certainly things I'm not proud of in my lifetime and in DMs, but this is mainly why I just don't talk to people anymore. And the problem with being hypersexual as well, it only complicates things further, so you can imagine where that sort of went. You know, this is the problem though, sometimes people don't keep that in check. They have hypersexuality and then they just go completely off the fucking rails and then are being a predator. It's why you keep tabs on your heart and you do the right thing and remove yourself from situations where you can be like that. That's why I'm more quiet now than I ever used to be. And to be honest, I'm more comfortable without talking to people. It's just much easier, and I just prefer making like the odd comment here and there, and that's it. That's why I tend to be more quiet. So, I think one of the other reasons, and I talked about this briefly in the beginning, the personality traits can often lead to these problems, and this is something I've noticed with, for example, my abusive housemate, and the last episode I called him M because that's what I've called him before. But M was basically a womanizer, and this wasn't obvious at first. I knew the moment he told me he'd just got out of marriage and he decided to come here for some reason, of all places, even though he can very much hold his own, do his life properly without the help of anyone else, which is weird. So it's weird that he came here, but I knew that there was something up with him. Look at Final Fantasy 14, this guy just fucking turned to the camera. What the hell? Sorry. That's distracting. But I do find it strange because he wears this mask of essentially kindness and compassion, but he has a side to him that's inherently evil, and this is why I mentioned about keeping yourself out of the situation, because he probably would have been fine had he stayed the fuck away from this house and this organisation. But no. He decided to go and get himself arrested and gone somewhere else. Excellent. Good fucking job. Completely fucks your life up, so not my problem at least. I've already sorted mine out for the most part. But this is the real problem. People just don't do that. They don't even self-help in that sense, because I didn't understand self-help before. I think it is still a lot of bullshit, to be honest. But the only way you can help yourself is by literally being honest about things. Being honest about who you are, what problems you have. And that way people can help you and accommodate you. And generally do things for the better. I think that's stupidly important. I got some eyes away from Final Fantasy for a sec, Jesus. A lot of strange things happening in there. Anyway, it's just bizarre. Because you wouldn't guess like people like this would be, evil in some way, but of course, because they don't confess and they just keep it inside, it's like, oh, yeah, obviously you're going to have problems, and you're going to have bigger problems to worry about later on if you don't address this sooner. Like, Jesus Christ. This is why it sort of leads back to the controversy here, at least in my opinion. I don't know much about Shay, and to be honest, I don't want to know much. I have a feeling I've seen one of their speedruns or two, maybe, but I'm not sure. But it just goes to show that with these types of people, sometimes there's a personality trait that can literally be pinned back to these problems. Whether it's a predatory behaviour or being really edgy and being apathetic, it could be many different things. It's like how we sometimes see these claims of people like, for example, left-leaning in politics or just left-leaning in general, and they're doing other things as a hobby or focus, and you find out that they've been typing derogatory comments about people, like women or black people or whatever. There's many different ways it can go. And this reveals another problem in not only just society, but the entire personality traits that these people have. Because believe it or not, I've grown up in a sort of rough place where you can sort of say these things and get away with it. And it's because it's between people you're close to, for example. And that reveals a problem. Because essentially you can't really get away from it, but you're all sort of conditioned to believe it. Fortunately, I had the mind to use critical thinking and realise that, oh, maybe you shouldn't use these words. And that stopped me from doing it. It stopped me from basically saying blatantly the N-word and F-word, whatever. You name it. And I think everyone's guilty of it at some point. It's more common in childhood because you generally don't know, you don't really care. Different reasons why. But I think as you go into an adulthood, you realise that the impact of society is more important than it ever has been. You start to realise that you yourself have a role to play here and have to be careful. And that's why situations like this end up being so not just devastating to people looking back on it, but also to the world in general, because it does sort of lead by example. It reminds me of these controversies that happened at the Oscars, and I'm going to bring up Redacted, so obviously be warned. It's only like a few bad actors here, really, in my opinion, but some are worse, for sure. So the first one to go wasn't actually someone. How do I mention this? I don't think I will actually. It's more like a breakup, because Lewis was going out with someone called Hannah, and things went wrong eventually. They were close, but didn't seem that close in the later years, and sort of revealed that they were together, and suddenly Hannah wants to move on from the Oscars, which is fine, but I'm not exactly sure if that was the right decision or what, but that was kind of a sign of things to come, to be honest, because there were things later on that happened that were far worse, and apparently one with full knowledge of it. First to go was someone called Kafka's, who turned out to be a sexual predator. Yeah, that was really fucking concerning at the time, and still concerning now even. I don't know where he is or what he's doing, but I don't really care. Problem is, he portrayed himself, much like him, as I mentioned, sort of portrayed himself as a kind and decent person. But as it turns out, he wasn't very nice behind the scenes. I think he even sort of mined Bitcoin in the office at one point, which is kind of funny, but also not so much. But yeah, he got kicked out for that, and I think arrested as well, which is good. But again, that's the thing, the personality traits sort of were there. He was sort of laid back, but also quite sort of unhinged. That's one of the traits I've noticed. And then you got the next person to go, who was essentially Tubbs. He was, I think, the previous CEO of the Oxcast, and he had a family, which ties into this, believe it or not. And it turns out he was caught cheating on his wife with Yog fans. I think it was anyway. Or at least someone else. But that's worrying. Like, that's not professional, and that's not even... Like, sure, it's not related to the Oxcast, but that's kind of a dick move. And luckily the guy took responsibility and decided to remove himself from the Oxcast and deal with this problem personally and never come back, which is good. But that's like one of the only people I've known to ever sort of do something like that. Just crazy. And it's definitely one of the least bad situations in these dramas that the Oxcast have been through. But then there's Shin, who pretty much was a fan favourite from a lot of people. Only to discover that I think he was messaging underage young fans. Which is, yeah, very creepy. But it turns out that he removed himself, and apparently this was already known for years. Like, he'd even been accused of this long before this bigger controversy came out. And he decided to part ways with the Oxcast. He still makes content today, I know that because I was still somehow subscribed to him on YouTube, I'm not sure how. So it's bizarre. But yeah, he essentially removed himself, and I don't know if he's addressed the problem. Maybe he has, but it's kind of worrying either way. And yeah, I've seen people argue that it shouldn't be on the internet, but again, this sort of ties into rehabilitation and prevention, that matter. As I mentioned, remove yourself from scenarios where it can happen. But either way, that's sort of the Oxcast state of affairs, and yeah, like Shane, really enough, wasn't sort of a very unhinged person. There was moments, but not massively unhinged. It's a sad situation either way, because again, he was a fan favourite, so that was quite a big thing to happen to the Oxcast, and a very unfortunate thing. But it's better that they part ways, so the Oxcast can live on, be themselves. So yeah, that's those dramas, but again, you can sort of see these problems from somewhat far away. There's a catalyst for it, essentially, for all these problems. I could be wrong, but yeah, you can sort of see them. So, with this Jay situation, again, I don't know enough to comment on how this could have come about. But this is why I advise people to look at the warning signs. When it's a personality trait, when it's like narcissism or overconfidence, for example, I think is very commonly associated with a lot of this bullshit, which is why you have idiots like Trump. It sort of ties into even the topic before this, believe it or not, suicide prevention, because, yeah, like, there are people on both sides who are either really smart and do this shit, or people who are just really dumb and do this shit. And the people who are really dumb, believe it or not, just get free passes. Like, it makes no sense. That's why you have Trump in presidency and not in jail. So it's also a fucked up system. There's not enough justice, but there's also not enough help, I don't think, for the people who do want help, or can help themselves even. So it's concerning. And I think that's why a lot of the times when we hear or see someone doing something like this, it's even sort of true in the vegan community as well. I've had a few off people, but we sort of stopped focusing on that and started to focus more on other things, but we still for some reason put people on a throne if they're vegan. It reminds me of Steve actually. That's one of the best examples of this, I think, because he was happily a vegan for a while and even appeared on Peter's channel of all places. And by the way, you should look up why the hate against Peter is essentially astroturfing, because there's a really interesting video on that with lots of research. But anyway, he appeared on there, and a few years later he went on, or once I think it was, and I think he was sort of asked about his diet and lifestyle, and he sort of said that he didn't like the vegan community because they're pushing them to basically feed their dogs vegan food, which research contradicts because there's research saying that it's actually better for animals if they're fed vegan. And, you know, everyone had a disagreement with Steve there, obviously. But knowing his personality traits from what we've seen in Jackass and probably other appearances have been, I can't remember any others with enough. But it's very obvious that he had the kind of personality where he'd favour anything that convenienced him himself, which is weird. And obviously, by virtue of him appearing in Jackass anyway, it kind of implied that he wasn't the smartest person to begin with. So obviously something like this, he would obviously fail. This is why putting people on a throne like that is just suicide. It's stupid. But as I said, a lot of these personality traits come back to bite people, and that's one of the problems. Because there's often something they're hiding that they're not being honest about. And that very much comes out when people are noticing these problems, and there's allegations and there's accusations and stuff. You know, anyone can make up certain allegations about people. It's not hard to do these days. I think it's different when there's actual evidence of this and it can be proven, and if there is like official police investigations, for example. I know that there is a problem with like the police and stuff where they just don't go on this publicly for some reason. I do find that very strange because there are situations where that's absolutely necessary. Because it's so much corruption that we literally can't have things covered up. There has to be transparency. And I suppose that's another reason why a lot of this just goes, for lack of a better term, perhaps undercover. Just away from seeing eyes. It's because of shit like this. People stay hidden, and then political forces or corruption will just keep them hidden. It's just a fucked up thing. Yeah, it's just a topic to talk about, really. It's not necessarily anything that's, I don't know what to say even. It just doesn't surprise me anymore. You know, at this point, even if a massive YouTuber came out with allegations, like some well-known Linus Tech Tips actually had some massive allegations levied against them about discrimination in the workplace, it just made me want to unsubscribe from them, and also just the arsehole approach to things and trying to sue gamers next to something they were doing. It's just like, Jesus Christ, what a fucking joke of a channel now. It's a shame though, because they have talented people there. Linus himself isn't necessarily that talented, he's knowledgeable but not talented. And they're being cooped up in this fucking crap hole of a place with supposedly discriminatory assholes, so that even they could be discriminatory assholes. Plus, again, the thing here, people need to be aware of these sort of, I don't know what you call them, assholisms? I don't know. I think when you're sort of picky on people and specifically being violent and hateful, that's a problem in itself. You need to confess and rehabilitate. It's extremely dangerous not to. Anyway, I got talked enough, so let's move on. I've got stuff to do. Well, I don't know how I didn't do this before. It's probably because I didn't have the podcast up by then, but this happened a few months ago. Sometime after I finished watching One Piece, I believe it is, I decided to give another cartoon a try. At least it was sometime after I watched something else after that, which is, I can't remember when. But I gotta remove this from things of 2025 because I had it in there as the example of what not to do. in a TV show. And people will find this controversial as fuck. No doubt. Because of what the show is about. So, yeah. Let me get into it. So I'll have a look at the things at 2025. Yep, that literally came after that. So I'll remove it. I'm going to explain why. Beavis and Butthead. Very much a product of its time. But very much, in my opinion, one of the worst shows I've ever fucking seen. I only lasted 3 episodes, and I just said, you know what, fuck it. You know, I wouldn't have lasted longer than the first episode if I was just managing my time better. But I gave it 3 tries, and it failed on all 3 attempts. And the main thing for me is they just had 0 direction, and pretty much no story at all. And yeah, the dialogue is unique. It's basically a social commentary, even a political one at that at times. But that's not very interesting, because it needs to be different. But to me, it just sounded like some people in a room just talked and said, like, oh, you know, this thing where people are dressing up as a woman, which, yeah, by the way, was a plot point, and pretending to be a woman. Oh yeah, I know what you're talking about. Let's make a TV episode about that. Let's make an episode about that, I mean. And they actually did that. What the fuck? But they also made it weird and creepy, because Beavis and Butthead are obviously, I think, minors in this, and they essentially do this thing for charity at their school, and they're not taking school seriously, but they're trying to raise money. And they find a guy, well, I say guy, but I don't know, I say guy anyway, just for the story's sake, the explanation's sake. But he basically is suspicious as fuck. He's like, I'm pretty sure he answers the door in like a gimp sort of suit or BDSM suit, and then tries to lure the Beavis and Butthead in for this charity thing as well, and get him on board, but they don't know what's going to happen. And essentially they go through some BDSM stuff. Well, it's not shown, I don't think, but very fucking creepy. And the guy is also trying to appear as a woman, which is again concerning. So that didn't leave a good taste in my mouth. And even like the first episode where they're like doing baseball with the fucking animal, it's just like, what the hell? Did people actually find this funny? Like, what the fuck? It's a cartoon, I get it, but where's the humour in that? Like, you could just say that, oh, you shot a kid today. Funny. Like, what? It's just aged so poorly. And that's the takeaway I got from it. But believe it or not, that's not even the worst part. Because South Park, no doubt, aged poorly in some ways. I remember the episode where Mr. Garrison transitions and also detransitions. It's a fucking disaster. But the big takeaway with that, with Beavis and Butthead, is that it just didn't age well. And it just wasn't interesting. I was just bored as fuck at that point. Like, what gives? Seriously, it was terrible. Like, Jesus, I'm glad I fucking stopped watching it. It's literally one of the worst TV shows I've ever fucking seen. Seriously. But, yeah, as I said, that's not the worst thing about it, believe it or not. Because in my opinion, the worst thing was actually the... fuck, what am I thinking? The commentary at the end, that's it. Because each episode has this commentary on, or even during the episode as well, on like various music videos, because it's like MTV and stuff, I think. And they're just making weird fucking comments about the bands that appear in these music videos and stuff, and skipping over some as well. For some reason they skip some of their music sections, which I found interesting. So I definitely recognise some of the tracks, but like, they're doing this stupid ass commentary on it. And I was just bored as fuck with that as well. Like, it's absolutely crazy. Like, the commentary wasn't creative. They're like saying this guy looks like a woman, and then like do the snickering. sure, but where's the humour in that? Like, it just doesn't make any sense. And what's weird is the clips I've seen of Beavis and Butthead are generally fine. But I guess that's because the reason that there are clips there, and there are so few actually, for that matter, it's probably because either one, they're a meme, or two, that's the only part of it that was good. And they apparently revived this series as well recently, where Beavis and Butthead are now actually grown up. But I'm just disturbed by this series more than anything, because it just doesn't feel creative or funny. If anything, it's like lazy, because anyone can look at a music video and judge it. Like, you know, if you go to like a fucking Guns N' Roses music video, like, I don't know, so they did that in the episode, I think, actually. Like, one of them starts with a fucking baby on the table, like, dick out as well. Like, you can make a commentary on that shit, and it's just like, Jesus Christ. It's so fucking bizarre. This show is just awful. And that's why I'm not going to include it in the things of 2025, because it's just not worth it. And I tried to make it a positive thing, but my god, Beavis and Butthead is literally, I think, the worst show I've ever seen. Which says a lot. And the thing is, like, a close second to that, in my opinion, was probably at least New Age Family Guy. You know, old Family Guy was decent, but new one, nah. Yeah, American Dad was actually pretty bad as well. I'm trying to think of all the cartoons I've seen that has just terrible things. I've never got into Teenage Hunger Force, but I've never tried it. It's just, it looks very unappealing to me. I don't fucking give a shit about talking food. It's just strange. Mr. Pickles, yeah, very strange series that was. I'm not sure. But anyway, yeah, I think that's all I've got to say there. But don't try Beavis and Butthead, because you will be a butthead and Beavis in turn. So I've got to address the, I guess, the elephant in the room. I was trying to think of something clever, but I couldn't. So I'm aware of the current situation with purple profile pictures, and yes, I have considered changing mine as well. The only problem is I don't know what to change it to exactly, because I'm very much standing in solidarity with trans people as of this moment, and that's why I've got a fucking trans profile picture. The big problem there, I suppose, is there seems to be a lot of sort of controversy over this for some reason. It's not the thing that's making me not want to change my profile picture, let's be clear. I very much stand with women's rights and stopping violence against women. Something I believe down true to my heart, literally. And I think it's horrible that this is even happening to begin with. It shouldn't be happening. That's what's crazy about this. And I'm just trying to figure out a way to go about it with my own profile picture, but besides that, I guess I wanted to talk about with the situation in general and it being related to I think it's a South African non-profit. I think it's important to sort of discuss and encourage other people to do the same. They're rally behind women, literally. It's important. There is a crazy amount of bias against women in society and even economy and even employment. So many problems. And as people have noted, there seems to be more crimes committed against women than essentially men against men, which is honestly an atrocity. I think the more balanced it is, the better, but still, it's not good there's crime to begin with. There shouldn't be any. That's why there's often so much conflict. And I really don't know an easy way to address it myself. So I wanted to respond to some controversies as well before. Actually, I'll respond to that after. The other thing I remembered is that because of the radicalisation of young people, it's more frequent that there will be a lot of like young men and even some women as well who just take to the side of idiots like Trump or Andrew Tate, and because they speak to their personal issues and sort of address them. There are plenty of people out there in the world who think, or who follow the line of inceldom and don't realise it, and they're not even aware of it because it's like even in a non-internet sense this can happen. And if you call someone an incel like that, then you're just going to confuse them. It's pretty stupid. So I don't advise it, obviously. Even though it is the correct term, it's not the educated term, exactly. Instead, it's better to explain the problem and solve the problem there and then. The other thing, I suppose, is when it comes to women's rights, I think the easiest way to convey this is to explain that we all share the same traits. But literally, and there is actually, I'm pretty sure, evidence to suggest that before you're even born, you start out as female. So everyone's literally transitioned to male from female. So that means a lot more than you think. For women, it does unfortunately mean there are genetic differences, like women have to go through pregnancy if they want to. Sometimes it doesn't happen that way, sadly. There's also periods, there's also increased risk of breast cancer and stuff. But there's so many things, and as well as just generally being in the body of a woman, which itself, to a lot of men anyway, is attractive. That is also a burden in itself. Because, yeah, like, you can't really change that. It's the same way that there's racism, I suppose. People just hate things that they see, and for some reason it's the colour of someone's skin. In the case of racism, sometimes it's linked to other things, or it's just confirmation bias, essentially. And that's how it happens even with violence against women. So that could even apply to the physical sense too. So there could either be people that hate it or like female bodies. It's a sad situation, really. And just important to note, or remember rather, that women are just like us cisgender men. Literally. And there's only those few differences, but we still bleed the same blood, share the same thoughts, even have sexual functions the same way, or similarly rather. We feel these things the same way, and you can't really detach from that no matter what. And it also doesn't define anything in terms of, like, oh, women are supposed to be child bearers for the husband or whatever. There's absolutely nothing like that in our genetic code or even in general. It's nothing. So oftentimes it doesn't make sense. So I wanted to address one of the controversies with the public profile pictures and what people seem to be viewing it as. And once again, people throwing the word around performative. Let's start that up, shall we? Because I already know it's not about that. Relating to or of the nature of dramatic or artistic performance. The first definition, the second one, done or expressed insincerely or inauthentically, typically with the intention of impressing others or improving one's own image. So, neither apply here. It's one of those things where people probably read the headline of something and think, yeah, you know, I agree with that, but I'm not going to read it. And even though there's like details, or they just disagree with it even from the headline, and they base their opinion off that alone, which is a dangerous and stupid way to think. And if I've done that myself, I've mentioned that I've seen just a headline. Other times I've read it. But yeah, for some reason people are stupid enough to believe this and believe it's performative. But where else did we see this claim as well? We saw it towards the Global Summit Flotilla as well. And when it came to highlighting people on there who were on board, who were supposedly famous anyway. There's a Game of Thrones actor on there, I'm sure. I forgot his name, sorry. I think he's Irish. There's Greta Thunberg. There's also Navarro Media's, I think, journalist. I forgot his name again, I'm sorry. I'm bad with names. Yeah, there were quite a few high profile people on there. And yeah, despite the drone attacks, despite them actually getting to nearly the border of Gaza, people still called it performative. Are you fucking kidding me? There's literally footage of the ships being attacked with drones and then boarded, live streamed. I've seen it live, by the way. Of them being boarded and abducted. Like, it's absolute. It's just fucking atrocity. How can you call that performative? Like, who the hell is being paid to go into international waters to dress up as Israeli soldiers, to then take them out of ships by gunpoint at that, which is also pretty sure illegal. It's just absolute fucking stupidity. That never made any sense. It still doesn't even these months later. So again, when it's called performative, I often wonder, is it something you just made up, or is it something you've proven? Because I think there's a difference. It's just absolute atrocity that people even think this way. So, I don't know what else to add. I'm trying to remember if there's other controversies. I think no doubt people will say, like, because as they call it performative as well, it's not just the fact that they think it's false, they think it's dramatic. And as a result, they just think that they're exaggerating the narrative here, that there is violence against women. And people are choosing not to believe that, hence calling it performative. But if you look into the evidence or studies, there is very much a bias against women. So no, it is not in fact a case where women are just exaggerating and people defending women or exaggerating the case. This is literally proven in evidence, in study, and it needs to change. This is why people are taking this measure. You know, we've had many different sort of trends over the years. I remember stupid little things like on the internet, on YouTube even, like Bob visiting the comments section to protest new changes and stuff. And then recently Clippy, there's even more sort of related things like Palestine, Ukraine, and there's different things here that people do to try and influence change and make people aware. And it's hardly virtue signaling either. Because if you can test a person on it and get their knowledge and understanding on it, then they've proven themselves it isn't virtue signaling. I think that's an easy thing to do, especially if it's like a quick answer, because let's be honest, ChatGPT is stupid and dangerous. So that needs to also be addressed, but again, saying these things are performative is just dangerous. Not just to women's rights, because for some reason women are saying this. It's dangerous to everyone. It can even be dangerous to men, for that matter. And that happens because, again, one oppression leads to another. And because of the oppression against women at the moment, and yeah, whilst you don't see it as violent as it used to be or even could be, doesn't mean it won't ever happen again. Doesn't mean it won't happen. And this is a problem, but it's also from a societal sense because there's not enough protections, there's not enough consideration. Given that it seems like women are not as highly employed or employable as men in most scenarios, there is a problem there. And because of that, there's active discrimination. That's literally what it is. So you have to address that somehow, and what these protests will intend to do, and I'm going to just speculate here on what it could do anyway, is it could encourage governments to actually provide proper protection, provide justice for women, because let's not forget, it's more than just something like workplace harassment. It's also femicide, the genocide of women, the murder of women, and also more commonly it seems to be the abuse of women as well. And it's a sad situation, because as myself, as a man with extreme hyper empathy, it's really painful to think about. I've often thought about it, because I've wondered if my gender identity was actually a woman before. I've certainly asked about it, and also asked like the trans community directly, and they gave me a straight up honest no. I mean, there were some kind of negative comments on that sense, in that sense. But that's how I discovered it, but I was also reluctant to even delve into this because I don't think I'd want to identify as a woman in a world where women certainly are discriminated against commonly, and being trans on top of that would be, I think, absolutely devastating. Not just to my mental health, but to other people's lives and the people around me. It'd just be awful. It's one of those things, I guess, it's not, I don't know if it's harsh to say, but I'm glad I wasn't born a woman. I want to know the pain that women go through, for sure, to understand it. I want to go through the pain of having a period and hell, even pregnancy. That's because I want to expand my empathy and understanding of what it's like. You know, even like having a bra and having overly sized breasts, because to be honest, and I had this, I'll just say I had an ex who had massive ones. There's no way to describe it. But there's consistent complaining about back pain, and I was like, that's horrible. I want to pay for that surgery for you so you can get them smaller. It didn't matter to me that it might have looked better, it mattered to me that she was comfortable with her body and not experiencing pain in that sense. That's why I want to explore those aspects. It's about sharing the pain and reaching more of an understanding and having a higher level of empathy for women, and I never want to forget that. That's the main reason I'd want to do something like that. Yeah, I think that's something that people need to learn as well themselves. The people who are just Andrew Tate followers or whatever, like whoever it is these days, they just need to learn that not everyone is in a different situation. It's not always a good situation. But commonly it's not a good situation, unfortunately. It's often a sad one. There's active discrimination. It just goes without saying, really. People really need to grow the balls and other type of stuff anyway, and just admit where they're wrong and try to be a nicer person, especially towards women. It's one of those things as well. I even considered talking to female friends of mine and offering to pay money towards like things like, I don't know, tampons or a moon cup, or anything like that. I'm just comfortable in them. Because I hate the fact that there's a discrimination like the gender pay gap as well. I'm pretty sure women are paid less, but also are not paid sick pay for something like periods or pregnancy even. So there's a lot of discrimination there, and I'd want to do all I can to support friends and even family in that sense. So yeah, not sure what else I can talk about here, because I've pretty much covered everything I was going to say. But I hope that this situation will resolve itself over time in the world. So, let's face it, it's probably not going to happen instantly, it never does. But I wish the best to women and offer my protection and support. That's it. So, let's move on. That's something crazy I just realised upon seeing one image about lab-grown meat. People call this unnatural. And yeah, it is potentially unnatural. And I say potentially because you don't actually know the method, and I don't either. So let's stop pretending we know. But it's important to recognise that with this, you have to understand that it applies to your position as well. Because when we're actually looking at what's unnatural, we're looking at how insanely not naturistic things are. And the important part here is to recognise that when you look at meat and animal products, for example, it is far more fucking unnatural. It's horrible. Like, Jesus Christ. When you look into what animal products have in them and how they even get there to begin with, it is the most unnatural shit you've ever seen in your life. And I say this having seen real people dying. Because it's that part of the internet. Which, yeah, it's, you'll see that at some point, possibly. The internet is just full of this shit, unfortunately. But, the crazy thing is that people don't see this, and well, not the humans dying part, but I've seen enough slaughterhouse footage and farm footage to know that there is an extreme amount of cruelty in these industries. And when you look at why they're being treated cruelly, you'll see it's because of unnatural reasons. For example, they're trying to use selective breeding to get the most out of a product, which means excessively decreasing the animal's lifespan and increasing their suffering. So with hens, for example, egg-laying hens, they get selected based on the amount of eggs they lay. For chicken, they get selected based on the size they are. For beef, they get selected based on if they're an expired dairy cow or a very profitable calf, essentially, so they can grow. And the other thing, I suppose, is dairy cows as well, because the ones who are selectively bred are those who are picked based on how much they can milk. And they go through a lifelong suffering with that because they're torn away from their children who are supposed to have the milk, but instead corporations decide that it's better for us. And why are we letting corporations decide that exactly? It's one of the things I'm wondering. Why are people willing to defend these billionaire corporations? I don't understand. But anyway, there's more to it than that. There's also sheep that are grown to have the selectively bred, where they grow more wool. There's pigs who are selectively bred and essentially grow more in size. And also you get the horrible sour grates. And yeah, they're just horrific. I literally don't even want to think about it. As we could see, there are just so many areas where animal products are just not only unnatural, but just cruel. There's nothing humane about these in the slightest, and even then, humane would imply that there's no harm. So it contradicts the point when you realise that all these animals go out to slaughter or get killed someday because they're not producing a product. Like, how is it even humane from both the former point, their product, and the latter, they've expired? Like, what the fuck? Using terminology like that means that it isn't humane. That's just ridiculous. So another thing to look into is that, other than these practices with selective breeding, you also have to recognise that when they suffer, they have to be fed something. They have to be given some sort of vitamins to be fortified, essentially. They need to be given some types of medication, like painkillers and antibiotics, just to fight it back against this fucking shit. Well, the painkillers one actually might be false, I think I just got that mixed up, to be honest. But there's definitely antibiotics in animal products, and that increases the human resistance to antibiotics, which is a bad thing, because it means you're going to get sicker. And then you look at other things, like what they're fed. Turns out there's microplastics in their feed. And then you look at the air moles and where these products are grown, and there's environmental destruction, which is also unnatural. It's destroying ecosystems, which is unnatural. So this is like scraping the top of the barrel, literally. There's so much more beneath this, so much more beneath the surface. And one of the other things I sort of haven't gone into here as well is probably, oh god, it's left my mind again. BRB. I remembered. It's probably the fact that they can breed illnesses and viruses. Technically, we would never have colds or flus or even COVID if it weren't for animals. Animals are basically causing this in these terrible states where they're wallowing in their filth, they're getting infections even despite antibiotics. And in places like China, where it's completely legal to have streets where you essentially can have live animals in cages close to each other, they start making diseases just there and then. Because that's what happens. There's so much shit in the air, there's so much humidity as well, no doubt, probably. And it's going to cause so many problems. And there are stories back when COVID came out, obviously, but appeared, rather, that it was probably because of bats, and specifically bats are being used for essentially feeding people, or supposedly feeding people, I don't know actually. But it's something to do with bats and being in cages next to other animals. And this shows a huge problem. Because if we allow this to happen and it gets this out of hand, who knows what's to come next? That's one thing that's often always on my mind when I consider this. Because we could just get a random disease one day we don't even know about until it's too late. And for example, we could have something now. Well, this is an absolutely terrifying thing. Because of something that's attacking your immune system from your brain or from the inside out. It's just biding its time getting there. And suddenly bites out. And you're just gone. And the people around you are gone. And then there's essentially ghost towns. That's one of the terrifying aspects of this. That's where it gets extremely out of hand, as I said. So there's so many unnatural things about the animal agricultural industry. So before you criticise lab-grown meat, look at where yours comes from. So it's been a while since I've talked about Rocksmith 2014 and the custom DLC scene, I think. Maybe I have talked about it recently, but I can't remember talking about this, that's for certain. I was just reminded of looking at Ignition, the custom forge database basically. I have 126 notifications on my account. These range from likes to reports and even CDLCs being disabled, which I'm fine with, honestly, because I've moved on. I'm not really making CDLCs anymore. There's not really any point, to be honest. I've done all I wanted to do and all I can at this point, and I want to focus on making my own music, and that's why I moved on. But I'm actually surprised by the lack of tutorials out there, and even quick start guides for that matter. Because it's not actually that hard to make a CDLC, it takes routine and practice, but it does get easier. I remember my first ever one, it was shit, and it sort of ended up getting me banned because I had an argument. Then I came back and was unbanned, and then I just started making CDLC again. At least I think I was unbanned. Might have been a new account though, but again, I don't really care. It was the past. I was a dickhead in the past, so I deserved it. I'm different now. But I've made a quick start tutorial here, of all things. This is what I did to make the perfect CDLC, and yeah, like this tended to work. Actually, I just remember something else. Because technically there's another step here, and I wish Notepad would autocorrect that, but yeah. So yeah, just remembered. The most complexity is probably in Editor on Fire, and I'll go through this now that I saw the quick tutorial here. Tools you need: Editor on Fire, Toolkit, audio-wise that supports Toolkit, because you have to check if Toolkit has the right one. It requires specific versions for some stupid reason, but anyway. Next software you need is Tux Guitar 1.2 or older, and optional Guitar Pro for fine edits like slides and technique, but you do have to buy it. And finally Audacity, optional for audio conversion with VOF. So that's all you need for the most part anyway. I think some people will use other things, but these are what worked for me and what made the CDLCs pretty much playable. And all thanks to the combination of these aspects. So step one is quite an obvious one, but find a tab or MIDI and find the other assets. So album cover, you always want to make sure there's a tab or MIDI first. The one thing around MIDI is you need to make sure that you've edited it to be playable, because sometimes there aren't tabs for a song and you need the MIDI instead. Well, you can use the MIDI, I mean, but it needs to be playable. And I see people importing this shit, which annoys me, just as the MIDI alone, which isn't good because you get random notes like 3 on the A string, third fret A string, and then for some reason the open G string, because that's what a MIDI does. It essentially lowers it to the closest note to the 0 fret, and that's on that string, so it's as low as it can go basically, but on the correct string tension. Well, say correct, but anyway. Next thing, number 2, you need to import into EOF, check the notes timing with the clap option, check with the techniques and composition, check they're correct, add tone changes wherever possible if necessary. Also, make sure I forgot to mention this, but make sure your Editor on Fire tab thing, or the note highway, is in sync with the audio, because I see people doing this shit, and it's annoying. It's easy to just sync it with audio and then import the tab. Problem solved, it's all synced. People can read it better. They can read the timings better, so that's important. After that, you need to, well, you can enable MIDI. I think I tried it and it didn't work before, but maybe it works now. And also you can change arrangements and import in there, so you can check them. And that's mostly it for Editor on Fire, but if there is issues, step 2.1 here. For bad timings, in terms of BPM, you can make BPM changes by selecting each beat individually. But for tab problems, you can go into the tab and sort of, the thing with Tux Guitar is it has such fluidity to its design, and thanks to that you can easily edit the timings of a track. It's not as easy to do in Guitar Pro, which is why I don't recommend it. It's absolutely stupid. Guitar Pro is awful. I've never had a good experience with it. But I do generally recommend using Tux Guitar for this, because I've done it a lot over the years. Like sometimes it repeats too much, so you remove a repeat in Tux Guitar. Also, you export it as well. Export it as Guitar Pro. I forgot to mention that because it doesn't save as Guitar Pro for some stupid reason. That's the only problem with it. Also, it doesn't save techniques all the time. This sort of leads into the third step after you import it all back in. Save it, and save regularly. This is really important because it can save your skin. Because I once lost a tab from not saving anything, and it was because of a power cut. But if I had saved in Editor on Fire, it would have probably saved me. But no, I ended up not doing that. So I lost a lot of progress, like over 2 weeks progress on the tab, which is great. Next thing, number 4, open up Toolkit. Number 5, grab your assets and fill out the blanks. Number 6, generate. Number 7, really important one by the way, test. I can't stress enough how important it is to test every arrangement. Because I've seen so many crappy CDLCs where it's out of sync, or the arrangement crashes, or there's just something wrong with it. Like the tone doesn't work, or it's not changing. It's why it's so important to do a full test, and you don't even necessarily need to play it all, you just need to have the sections. Also, placing sections is important, I forgot to mention that. In step 2, you need to place sections. I placed a ton of them so people can play specific riffs on repeat, hence riff repeater. Yeah, if there's any problems with the test, you do need to repeat these steps unfortunately, but it does benefit you in the end. Makes things look higher quality and more polished. Also make sure you definitely save it. You can check by checking the check it saved by looking at the date modified. And then number 8, you upload and stuff and profit. So that was under 5 minutes for a tutorial about making custom DLC in Rocksmith. It's not difficult, and it doesn't need, I've seen like a 55-minute guide in all honesty. Like for showing the entire process, yeah, you do sort of want that tutorial. That's its only purpose really. But for people starting out, this tutorial doesn't help, even with the timestamps. So I'll just be honest. But this is how I used to make a custom DLC, and it's done me well for years. Really, all the years I was doing it, it was probably over 6 years I think. I was making custom DLC. Custom DLC, I mean, yeah, it is custom DLC. I mean, yeah, so hopefully that helped people, but that's just my quick tutorial. You could probably stick it into a short if I had properly sort of structured this and thought about the process, but it's been so long since I even touched it. And the last time I even tried to touch one was probably a few years ago, maybe even a year ago, and it just wouldn't generate. You know, I couldn't get it to work for some reason. I just left it in the custom forge forums for someone to pick up, so there we go. This is another thing I potentially forgot to add to one of the things I talked about a while ago, maybe. It's about why there are just no more nice people, it seems, in any space. And I'm talking specifically about how you know that you're probably an arsehole or not empathetic enough. I think this one really shows because there's real meaning to the words, or even phrase, even more like a phrase. Wear your heart on your sleeve. And that very much means that you're doing it in not just your own mind or your own space, but in front of other people, but mainly in your own space. And I think the important part here to recognise is if you're ever having thoughts about doing or saying weird shit and you're expressing it, like even privately, and you have very much a problem there. Because one of the things I realised myself is before when I used to talk about certain people, I used to repeat that sort of thing in my mind, but I also used to use an example of like slurs and stuff. I used to have a habit of using the R word, and this stopped around a few years ago when I started to realise that disabled people were very underrepresented, and there was also an issue with how society treats disabled people, which, using a term like retarded, let's just say it outright, is not good for that. And the problem with that is, if you say it even in private, I don't think you've actually learned your lesson. I don't think you've actually taken anything from it. And it goes with other things too. So my glasses are gone with. It's a fucking. I don't know why it keeps getting debris on it anyway. Yeah, I literally don't think people have any right to even use these words, even in private. If I was to say, like, oh my god, this game is like so R-word, then I don't know. But it's bad to use. It creates, firstly, a bad habit. Two, it incentivizes it even more, so it latches on. And then third, it can even just slip, because that can literally happen. So I took the more optimal route and decided, I'm just not going to use this word anymore, and I phased it out over time to the point where I never use it. I never use it to insult anyone, but as I said, I use it to show the example, show what it is in case people are confused. But that's the point there, because I think if you're going to call people names, even behind the scenes, even in your own head, there's something really wrong with you. That just means you're corrupt. And that's what I realised over the years when I started to think about these things. And in the past, I very much had a way of speaking to not just others, but myself as well. A way of thinking as well. Where obviously, using these words is not good for anyone. It's harmful more than anything else. That's why I've phased out. Well, technically I never used it to begin with, but it's why I don't like the word schizo, for example. Because people are using it jokingly today and seemingly not understanding what the fuck it actually means. And not even batting an eye towards the people who have it, who struggle every fucking day with it in absolute agony, and yet still joke about it. There's people still joking about schizophrenia, and it is actually a very real issue. It affects people, and it doesn't help at all when the societal view of something like schizophrenia, or even like what's the other thing I'm thinking of? Sociopathy, just gets such a bad rep. But what people don't understand is that it's completely attached to you, it's inherent. It doesn't disappear by the click of the fingers. Literally, that never happens in any part of real life. It just doesn't happen. And if that were an option, people would take it. But that's why we don't insult those people. It's out of respect, and it's out of just letting them exist. Just letting these things exist. I genuinely think that's what people need to start thinking and training themselves to believe. That's really important. Because I really can't see a world where we incentivise that sort of shit. It is actually one of the most harmful things for society. And it even sort of reminds me of like the insults that people use with like autism and stuff. Again, it's a similar sort of scenario. People have this, people struggle with it, and society's view on it doesn't help things at all. It makes it worse for us, and then suddenly you're wondering, oh, the world is depressed, the world is filled with suicidal people. Well, congratulations, you shot the fucking gun at us. Like, what are you expecting? Of course that's going to happen. So yeah, it's just another thing to consider really about life and what it means to actually be empathetic and peaceful, but in your own space. I've never sent a DM to someone, and if anyone ever checked my DMs, you'd never see me insult a specific group of people, ever. I'm not that sort of person. I don't even make snide remarks about people I know. So, again, that's sort of a demonstration of good character, and I'm not purposely stroking my ego there. But when I see that in other people, I'm like, yeah, you know what, that's respectable. It's definitely something I would do, but it's something that I very much appreciate. Because it's just a stupid and dangerous way of going about life, to judge people in front of others, other than confronting them on it for some reason. But, yeah. I think that's enough. Let's move on. Status rewards. It's in progress still. So, I'm still working on that custom series about Tales, and it's still taking a while to do because it just takes a while to do. I don't think there's any helping it really, because again, when I'm in this sort of mood, I seem to hyperfixate on it, which is rare, let's be honest. That's rarely happens. And I just gotta stop thinking about it. I'm constantly adding things and constantly not really changing things. I'm actually quite good at making things I don't want to reverse. I used to be really bad at that, I think, but it ended up being fine. But yeah, I'm still working on it. I'm on episode 5 now, I believe. Let's see. Oh no, I'm not going to read it all because there's too much to go through, and the last time I did that, I got so far behind on things I lost sleep. So, no. I've got, how many pages is that? Fucking Jesus. 26 pages. Are you kidding me? Okay, 26,000 words, but some of that is actually the old episode. Get to the bottom, so I've got episode 1, My Name is Tales, which is where we introduce characters like Dash. Episode 2, Dash with Green, it's where there's also an interesting ending with that. Sort of having to come to terms with saying goodbye and stuff. Not goodbyes in passing, but goodbyes in the friend moving somewhere. Episode 2, sort of explore a bit more. I believe we introduced another set of characters here. Yeah, I think I introduced 2 characters called Tina and Jerry, with a G instead of a J. Oh no, wait, that's the next episode. In this episode I think I was talking about their past actually, like Vanilla and Kylie talk about things and, you know, they discover more about their children. And yeah, it tells us a sad backstory, so you can probably expect. So that's still there. It's not as traumatising as the other episode I did, the other type of story even, but it's still somewhat sad because it's sort of about with enough racism, and I've tried to make it a big point here where we're talking about real social issues which happen here on Earth. They're happening in this world too, in Scenario, as we call it. So it's interesting. It has a lot of potential, in all honesty. I think there's so much going for this that I'm actually quite happy to sort of release it publicly and ask people to read it. So because my glasses have done it again, this thing on it, I don't know where this keeps coming from. Maybe I need to clean my eyelashes, something like that. Yeah, first episode, going through Dash and basically saying goodbye and stuff, but then there's an emotional moment at the end where Tails decides he wants to, actually halfway through he decides to build a plane to try and visit Dash every now and then, because Dash moved to another part of the country. And even though he got help with this from Cream and Amy, eventually, they they basically went on a test run, and Tails decided he wanted to actually see Dash that day, and they were sort of in a video call as well. And there's just sort of an emotional moment where Dash talks Tails out of it eventually and points to Cream as like the one who could stop him, even though she's just sat there. Sort of ask him to stop anyway. Tails listens, and yeah, episode sort of ends with that, and then they end on a note with doing the plane test again and seeing the blue blur again. It's still a mystery at this point. There's also a lot of talk about like Sonic's heart and stuff, the blue blur, as we know him at the moment. And yeah, they're always talking about him. And it's just, he has that influence on everyone. It's the Sonic effect, basically. Where everyone's inspired by him and everyone wants to be like him. Even the people who are sort of not nice to others. That's the interesting thing about this. Again, it's sort of like a societal thing. Although Sonic's not like some sort of celebrity or anything, and nobody actually knows his face, which is an interesting gimmick of written into this. Basically, they don't show his face. That's the thing. He's basically this unknown hero with no face associated, and he's just being a hero out there. That's all that we know about him. He's also saying things that are right, influencing people. It's just so many different things there. It's got that sort of level of complexity, and it sort of makes it a bit more PG, to be honest, because it's about societal issues. The other thing, I guess, in episode 2, with the backstory and stuff, is also a sad story about Tails, and also one about Vanilla, believe it or not. I've decided to write one in like that. And some about Amy too. So, yeah, there's definitely things there that can interest people. For some reason, traumatised kids are quite a not attractive thing, but it's something that draws people in. That's what I mean, not attractive, but it draws people in. Because it's just so interesting, and sometimes it's relatable. Yeah, it definitely feels relatable to me in some areas. I've suddenly written stuff about that, and it's interesting. Also kept the gimmick of Tails sort of recording this series for social media, where he's narrating his life basically, and he cuts in every now and then with narration and his guests, which is kind of cute. I'm trying to think what else is going on there. Not sure what else happened in the episode, to be honest. There's a lot to read though. Episode 3 gets a bit more interesting because there's definitely more happening. This is where... Wait, where are they? I think I introduced Tina and Jerry soon. Jerry's a goat and Tina's a cat, and they're both special needs, believe it or not. Jerry is autistic and Tina is ADHD. So together they sort of make a neurodivergent, not couple, but duo, and they're sort of brother and sister anyway, so it's an interesting gimmick. I do like them, they're pretty adorable. They've really taken a liking to Tails. Obviously they're friends with Cream and Amy. Yeah, also had this really nice moment with them all visiting a special needs school, like volunteering and making friends, which I think is awesome. I definitely had to include that. It's also been somewhat my experience in real life. Actually did that back in school. What happens in this episode? There's a spelling bee, which is kind of adorable but funny. It's just, I have some really stupid thing in there. I'm trying to look at it. Okay, so where is it? So yeah, someone in the classroom, when they announce it, asked the teacher to spell B. It's genius. And then Tails is up spelling something, and he's asked to spell a sentence, and he has to use it in a sentence. What the fuck? What? Like God, I swear I'm not on drugs. Is that the sentence? That's the one they say. And he spells it correct. And eventually, he's sort of asked to spell a really random thing, underwear. And then use it in a sentence. Underwear is unaware. It's just so fucking stupid. Even though it's not one word, I think it's like a trick question sort of thing that Tails is overthinking it, and yeah. He loses the spelling bee, which is sad. But that's kind of the point, that's what leads on to the next part of the story, really. And suddenly they're taken by these secret agent people, law enforcement. And they're all in like this limousine talking about something, and they need these specific skill sets of everyone that Tails is friends with, basically, including Dash. And basically they're being relocated and re-educated and educated on new things for a secret mission to stop crime in the country. And the country I didn't mention at that point, I made a name but I can't remember what it was. It's basically all the countries in this, and some of the names are literally a anagram of the countries I'm referencing. Which again is sort of clever. It's a niche thing, and obviously it's going to be hard to memorise, but it's one of those things that's not that important, really, because it doesn't come up often. So within this limousine, they meet someone called Bent. He's a walrus. He's a leader of this police department, which deals in countrywide crime issues, and basically the talent of everyone has a use, and they can also enroll in the sort of police enforcement area, but mainly it's going to be like research and development, but they need to protect themselves if they do it. And there is a sort of secret here where he's technically lied. They are essentially targets for certain people in the world, and they have to protect themselves, but they don't know this at that point. In fact, it comes up much later, and I haven't even written that part yet. I've got a list of like continuity sort of things and progressions. And did I make 2 episode 3s? I think I did. It's more than 5 episodes. I forgot to say in episode 3 they get a mansion basically where they can all live together, and they meet another team who's sort of similar to them, but they've already been there. It's like Vector and Espia and stuff, Knuckles as well. It's like the adult team, and they live separately because obviously children need a place to actually grow up properly, without many issues. So they get a mansion to themselves, and obviously separate rooms and different rooms for things, and also areas where they can do their work and stuff. And also explain this later on, if they'll remember. But they settle in stuff, and Tails is pulled aside suddenly by Ben, and it's revealed that Sonic actually wants to talk to him. And they're talking about saving the world and stuff, and it's important. And really, Ben needed Sonic to say this to Tails, because Tails was obsessed with Sonic, obviously. And Sonic knows the mission. So Sonic basically convinced him. And yeah, so they had an interaction like that. But then it is, and as we know, like, Sonic is quite secretive at this point, and for no reason in particular, it seems, at least until later. We do sort of find out the reason why. Trying to think what happens next. Oh yeah, they're gone. No wait, is that the end? No, that was about the end of the episode, I think. I also have bits at the end where it's sort of ecstasy narration / recording thing, and they just talk, and it ends on like a sort of note there. Maybe a lesson, but usually it's like a note. Sometimes it's cute, and other times it isn't always. It's just one of those things. It's funny, maybe. It's not sad though. And then the next episode they go on vacation. Because they just moved in, they just did their first course of training and stuff, and Bev decided it's a good idea to let them out to have a vacation and enjoy themselves before the hard work. And so they do, they go to, let me see, I wrote down the country name somewhere. Again, they're all pretty much anagrams. Here we go. Ekrieg, Cyan, and Landowitz. So, I guess what those are. They're pretty much some of the, basically two beautiful places that I'm familiar with, and one that I know is warm. I'm not sure if it's that pretty, but it does have a nice structure based on what I've seen. I do reference a city in that one. But yeah, they go to these places and discover it's nice, enjoy themselves. Have a stupid moment with an RC car race in a creek. I'm quite happy with some of the jokes that happen here. I just wish I could do them more frequently than I do in real life. And the race is about to begin, counting down. 5, 3, 2, 4, 1. So, actually, that's a good joke. Just make the guy not be able to count. Okay, I'm doing that. That's genius. And then he says, and they're off. No movement. They're actually off. They're really not moving. It's just, yeah. I do like that sort of humour. It's like very Monty Python-esque. It's unique. Yeah, just there's a cute moment, but also a weird moment. Gee, I wonder if it's foreshadowing, but Tails has a dream or nightmare that wakes him up in the night, and Collie's in the room as well with the other children because she's sort of babysitting them. She's in a single bed and the others are in a double bed, a king bed rather. So Tails wakes up, had a nightmare. He decided to nudge Kylie and grab her attention. He explains that he had a nightmare about aliens and a UFO, which is pretty creepy and very specific. So sure. So you might wonder what that leads to anyway. He sort of comes up with her, again the fan servicey part. That Tails is just a big baby, but he's smart. He's adorable. You can't say no to him. It's after that they go to explore the rest of the place, and then they go to the next country, which is Cyan. And here they discover there's a thing called chow gardens. So yes, I've included this, and I've given an explanation. Basically, chows are the wildlife of the world, but they're more common in hot countries like Cyan. And in Cyan, there's a chow garden. It's basically a sanctuary for chow, and people are really enjoying it, except for Tails and Kylie, who's actually supporting Tails, but she wants to interact. So Kylie's trying to convince Tails to join them, even though everyone's enjoying themselves with the chow, giving them feed and stuff, and they're all sort of in different forms as well, these chow. But yeah, as I said, Tails is on shore, and Green is just having the time of her life there. She's even been powered up on by certain chow, and that shows their likeness towards her, that she has a natural affinity for chow, all things. So that's how she sort of gets to that point. But that isn't where she gets her companion. That comes up later. So actually Tails gets used to her and lays down with Creep after seeing this happen to her. And Tails ends up accepting it, and yeah, he sort of gets along with them now. So they move on, they decide to head towards another city, I think. I can't remember actually. But they're on the road towards it anyway, and they have to take a bus to get there. Also, I forgot to say, like, Bev and his team apparently is watching over them, but he wasn't clear about who was watching over them. So that's another interesting point I included. So they're travelling, family, and the adults are there as well, but they're going in different places. Same countries, different place, basically. The adult house, I mean, not the family. Basically, the mansion is one family, and the adult house is a group of people who are too old for them. Well, not necessarily too old, but just not like them, not familiar. They do sort of work together in the end. Yeah, they're going down the road and they hear the noise of chows, and suddenly there's a call from the smartwatch, which I included. There's also a smartwatch thing at the beginning, I forgot about that. The Tails gives away 3 smartwatches alongside his assistant, Sherry. Sherry is a octopus Sonarian, but is almost a complete octopus because of a rare genetic mutation. So she has 8 tentacles. I think octopus has 8 tentacles. Let me double check octopus. Oh god, I might have embarrassed myself. Yeah, I think that's 8. Yeah, she has that going for her, and basically it serves as like an extra. Well, she has 2 tentacles as feet and then 6 as arms. Yeah, she works alongside Tails in research and development, and Tails made a smartwatch that also protects them with a shield. And does require recharging for the shield, but everything else is solar powered, if they wanted to. Yeah, he gives 2 to the team leaders, so there's 2 leaders in each house. There's the short squad / kid squad, obviously kid squad, so that's Amy leading it. She gets one naturally, just for being the leader, and Vanilla gets it for being the leader with the adults as well. So, and then there's one left, and that goes to whoever wants it or whoever Tails chooses, but it doesn't exactly work that way, because it's too hard of a decision to make and too unfair. So when the other 2 have stepped out, there's obviously only 4 people left who would take this, and Sherry the octopus, sets up this RNG device, complains that it's actually coded and not RNG. It's a funny reference, but and yeah, it gives it a go and rolls a number between 1 and 4. And it rolls on Cream's number, so she gets it in the end. That will come up later on. Anyway, as they're going towards these sounds of Chow following Jerry, who's able to locate the precise location, they find out that through Benf and a call on their watch through Vanilla, that there's actually a group of Chow poachers nearby. And they discover who it is, they go in, they do their squad thing. It's a funny distraction with Tina. She can't remember a line, and then she remembers it and makes something up. It confuses the poachers, there's only 2 of them, and then they swoop in, punch them in the stomach, and put them in handcuffs. Mission done, then they free the Chow from the cage, who were desperately trying to get out. That's a nice sort of interaction and first work experience, even though they weren't planning on that. And they leave. After the benefits of obviously the team will come and collect them. Law enforcement were actually on the way. Yeah, they walk along, and for some reason there's a Chow that's following Cream for people, and they can't really understand what's going on, and it's Shy Chow actually, who's hiding behind the bushes but following Cream either way. And yeah, Cream decides to check it out, given that she has already a strong affinity with them. Or is it affinity or is it bonds? I don't know actually what the term is. She discovers that this Chow is actually quite interested in her, and she has some feed, she gives the feed to them and says goodbye. Because obviously we don't know what this Chow wants or why it's following them, and decided to separate from the friends, or the other Chow and stuff, separate from the group even. And Amy still follows Cream for some reason. So they're confused, and Cream asks like if there's something wrong, if their friends are not nice and stuff. Just kind of personal questions, but gently asking them. And the child basically is like, yeah, he says ciao, does ciao say. And eventually befriends Cream and becomes a companion. So that happens, but they don't have a name yet. So they go to a city, they go to a restaurant, they decide to get pizza. It's an outdoor restaurant, they sit out there. The children are sitting together, as expected, as usual, even. And they're just discussing what to do. Scream's not sure what to name the child, and Amy's just sitting there, and I do like this plot, it's kind of funny. They talk about the names, as I said, and they're trying to think of a name for the child, and Amy suddenly asks the waiter to get some more cheese for the what is it pasta? I think pasta. And yeah, the waiter says yeah, and then Amy's like deep in thought about this for some reason, the cheese. And she says like cream and cheese. And Cream's like, yeah, that's actually a good name. I'll call him Cheese. But then Amy's responding saying, actually I thought cream and cheese was a good idea for a type of cheese. It's like, Jesus Christ. It's one of the stupidest things. I wrote it better than I actually explained it, I think. Yeah, let me actually read this. Oh yeah, that's what I said. Okay, so, excuse me, miss, can I have another bowl of cheese? Certainly, the British supplies. Creamsy has perked up hearing the name cheese, and she said cheese. And Amy said, hey, I got an idea, cream and cheese. Then Cream says, I think from now on you will be called Cheese, looking at the jar. And Amy just says, actually I thought I just discovered a new type of cheese. Thinking that, yeah, that's just stupid, I think. And Joe says there's no way that's the name you end up upon. Yeah, it's just interesting naming scheme sort of thing. Sort of like a dumb coincidence, but yeah. That's what their name is, by the way. That's why they're called cream and cheese. That's literally a joke, cream cheese. Amy was thinking she'd follow up on the idea of cream cheese. It's just, yeah, that's what I was sort of going for there. Anyway, moving on from that, they go to Landwitz, and it's also kind of cute, funny scene where they're taking an airplane tour, but there's like these glass windows that allow you to see a lot more of the mountain views in there. And Tails is basically too tired to even focus. Dash and Cream are basically talking about moving here in old age and living here. And Tails is like, also talking about moving there with Tails in old age too. But Tails is like, no way, I'm too tired for this. He just falls asleep. Yeah. I can't remember what happened during that as well. There's another part of that scene though. Briefly remember Billy land and Tails had his nap and is awake, and suddenly he says, wow, this place looks great. I think I might move here. It's so fucking stupid, but I love it. Yeah. Everyone's confused, obviously, and a bit annoyed, because that isn't what Tails said before. It's sort of like his cranky sort of behaviour, which Dash was actually familiar with, which is an interesting detail it is, but I described the scenery as well, like, describe what Landwitz is like. I described what the Krieg is like in Cyan as well. Yeah, eventually they move on, they go to a cafe, and for some reason Amy's like looking over the mountains and stuff, like over this fence, talking about stuff, and asks Cream directly if she's interested in Tails. And Cream's basically not sure, but it sort of moves on to. Actually, no, it's like. Hang on, what do I write? I keep forgetting what I write here because there's so much here. Yeah, it's pretty much about Tails, and then it moves on to Sonic, and Amy basically said, sort of as a aside, I'm not. Wait, where is it? Because when we're growing up, before you worry about where your heart is, it's also good advice. After all, I'm not sure if Sonic is the one for me. Yeah, that's what she said, and Queen's confused by that, knowing that Amy loves Sonic. But, she appeared a little worried, and Amy said that there's a good chance he'll end up with someone else, but I'm happy as long as he's happy. So you got relationship advice and just not being in a relationship advice. Just being happy for the person that you were in love with. And it's quite deep when you think about it. And suddenly there's a gust of wind from behind you, even though you don't get wind in Landowitz. So there's something going on there. Wonder what is going on. Anyway, they decided to take a tour up to the mountains again as a family, as a group thing, and they sort of split up anyway because the tour guide's far ahead. It's Tails, Cream, Dash, and Kaidi that's actually behind because they're taking in the sights, enjoying themselves, and suddenly Bentford alerts them of an ambush nearby where they're being targeted, and it sort of makes Tails panic, but the others are kind of calm because they sort of trained for this a lot more than Tails did. So they're going to cover. I forgot Jerry's there as well. Wait, no, it wasn't Jerry actually. Yeah, what is she doing? Who is there? Yeah, it's Cream, because she's like the most sensitive hearing one anyway. And so she finds out that someone's approaching Kylie and calls it out, and so Kylie makes her move. She does a fucking cliche sort of martial arts kick, like jumping and sticking her leg out a long way and hitting the guy in the face, knocking him out. And she says, "You're badgered." No, you got badgered. I mean, it's just silly. Again, I'm trying to make it as silly as possible at times too. It's just one of those things. Eventually, some people come out saying freeze, and Cream's confused why she couldn't hear them, despite having the next best sensitive hearing. They sort of explain that the guy that Kylie knocked out was a decoy, and yeah, they just had silent feet, I guess. I don't know if she write that. So it's just a plot hole I completely forgot to mention. Yeah, I can't remember. Where did I write that? Decoys. The Cenarian lions and leopards are doing this. And then they start inspecting her. And inspecting children rather, finding that there's interesting things. They're holding these taser guns basically, which can electrocute and stun them, so they can't move even if they wanted to. And they're basically inspecting them for their traits, and they discover that they are rare because there are not many genetic traits in Cenarians where they can actually develop things like long ears or two tails. So it's a rare sight for these poachers. The poachers are there because they're essentially, I call them poachers, but they're technically not, but they sort of are. But they're there to capture someone, and they say that they're here to capture someone specific, but these are not them, but we'll take them anyway. So they even plan on capturing, obviously, Tails and Cream for that reason, and as they're sort of about to capture Tails, Cream decides to budge in and take one of the person's tasers and tase that guy. It's about to take Tails, and then suddenly shields them both they watched from earlier. So yeah, she basically saved them, but they're sort of paused for the moment because there's not really much to do. But Cream was dedicated to protecting Tails now. That's in her nature, and Tails sort of holds her closely, and she's trembling. She's not sure what to do. And what happens? Oh yes, suddenly their weapons are gone, the tasers, and they're knocked out by something like a gust of wind again. So there's something weird going on there again. And then Kathy takes the opportunity to take out the leader of the line and eventually handcuffs them all. And they sort of leave the area, leaving it to Bev. I forgot to say there was actually a signal jammer, so Bev didn't get all his points across about what to do. So they had to use their training again to sort of figure out what to do there. So yeah, that's interesting. It's not the end of the episode, I don't think. Sort of go into the narration and into the present, because obviously with this narration they're talking about the past, it's past tense. But in the present there's different things, and there's sort of a cute scene where Tails has to go to an optician's, which I think is funny. I did sort of write a fanfic like that a while ago, I think, back when I was on DeviantArt. Yeah, so definitely a cute idea for the fact he's scared of it. And episode 5 is 6 months later, and this one I do really like, I think. He's talking about life in the mansion and what goes on there. So they have their morning routine, their children are all in the same room because they share share different beds. Jerry and Tails are the only one who don't need to get dressed exactly, other than socks, but that's it. Then what happens? They've got to get breakfast, they help out with it as well to help the adults. Sort of the kindness aspect of him, really. Tails is a kind person in this, and that's sort of what makes him so admirable to everyone else. And I'm not sure the word, but it makes him adorable as well, that's for sure. After breakfast, they head straight to work, and they got 4 different routes they can go. They can either go for combat training, they can either go for where is it? I've written it down somewhere, I can't remember. Yeah, here it is. Like first one, technology. So R&D. Technically, that is. Second one is combat. Third one is cooking, and the fourth is exercise. So basically, training to survive out in the open and even survive encounters like the ambush they were in. The only problem is that they had to specialise in the one that they were most suited to. So of course combat was more of a Cream, Amy or Kylie thing, but cooking would probably be more of a vanilla, maybe even Amy's father sort of thing. Who else? Probably even Tina as well, but there's different things with this. It's quite a complicated story in that sense, because characters are all doing different things and they have a different focus, and that's pretty much the gimmick here. But Tails has to spend the most time on tech because that's why he's been recruited into this new life where he is, even despite having to work, for basically staying in the mansion and getting free holidays and stuff. He's still enjoying himself, and he likes working with the assistant Sherry. Yeah, and when he sort of jokes out that they're working, and she's asking for different tools to work on this thing. A spanner, and then for some reason a scalpel knife, and Tails is asking like, what needs a spanner and a scalpel knife? Are we doing surgery? It's like, yeah, it's so stupid, and she just says like, I guess it's surgery for technology, sometimes these materials need a precise cut. Which is not far from the truth actually. But they're working on the plane that's going to get Tails to Mach 4, which is again the story point for episode 1, which I didn't mention before, but I'll mention now. He basically has a dream of reaching Mach 4, And so making something like that, which also could benefit the police force and even just justice in general, would be pretty beneficial. So he's trying to find ways to get that to happen. Starting with building the seats and trying to make that work. So that's why there's obviously a seat being made. Yeah, and I think that's the other thing. After lunch break, they have to go to school for an hour. The school is typically taught by one of the adults, and during that they learn everything from English to maths to a bit of science every now and then, but they don't need to technically. They also learn geography, and one of the gimmicks is that they get star stickers for good work. Amy's sort of reluctant because she's always doing a textbook at the back because she's obviously too old for this. Everyone else is still learning, and yeah, they get star stickers, but there is one gimmick. If they get given it at random, because Vanessa's not looking, a sticker with a UFO on it, again, maybe it's foreshadowing, maybe it's not, then they have to spell out all the countries of all the counties in this country, which I actually didn't write the name of. Mockgind. Yeah, it's a random name, but it's basically kingdom. An anagram for kingdom. I didn't add the united part because it didn't really make sense. Yeah, we got to list all the counties in Mockgind, and this time it falls on Amy, and Amy's asking like, what's the point in listing this because she's confused. So this is like the 10th time actually, actually more times than that, 6 months. Yeah, like hundreds of times it's happened. Evelyn just says, I'm not sure myself. Ben said it was a good idea to know who we're protecting just in case and to use the system to do it. And Amy just decides to comply and starts listing them. Starts with round call, however you say it. There's ROWN call. Then there's Evans. There's Restore. There's Erishmuth. And Zeus? I'm not sure how to pronounce it actually. Never thought about that. I'll just say Zeus. And then Rossi. So yeah, that's like anagrams of UK counties here, because this is UK basically. I've decided to base it in. Because to be honest, I don't like the UK. This is actually quite reflective of it. It's kind of the inspiration for this, to be honest. At the moment, the UK is in such a bad state. I just kind of feel like writing something like this to get the point across. But it gets more interesting, believe it or not, because there's now a personal drama with Sherry. And Tails is like getting along with her really well, and she's also really liking him. Obviously, Sherry's an adult, I forgot to mention that. They're both basically on the same intelligence level and making these things, making decisions. They're testing out a jet engine, trying to get to Mach 4 there to address the noise. And Sherry just all sits down and talks about life a bit and is struggling with home life because of the way she is. And she shows her like octopus tentacles which have suckers on it, which are attached to things really well. And she's basically always struggled with it, and sort of explains why she always touches things with the tips of her tentacles rather than with the suckers, as it is. And she says that she's not been on a date with her girlfriend in months because of this issue. And Tails is feeling bad for her because obviously he hates to see people sad, but he doesn't want people to be ashamed of their body, so he calls her pretty, which is adorable. And does make her like him a lot. And she's still trying to protest, saying that she can't be, that her body's always a problem, and then Tails decides to take her on a date. But a friend date, rather, not a romantic date. I literally wrote that, by the way. Just to make that clear. And she agrees to it. They go to a place called Superanos. Wonder what that's a reference to. Probably Minecraft. Anyway, they decide to do this date, and then there's a cute scene where they do dress up and stuff. Well, not Sherry, but Tails. Or yeah, he's like dressing up. It's like, well, actually, it's like Dash and Cream dressing up, and they decide on a bow tie and rose not perfume, but fur spray. Like, I don't know what to call it because it's different. And also using Amy's father's room to do it with his permission, obviously. So he's preparing for this sort of date. Like, it's a casual, friendly colleague date, or something, friend date. So it's not massively serious, and they decide between like a suit or bow tie, and it's like bow tie. There's a scene where they're just like saying, "Oh," because he's too adorable, and then they have and the girls, because Amy's there now as well, they decide to huddle after realising something wrong, and realise that Tails has another bath. So, fortunately for him, he has to go for a bath, and Amy chases him and gets him into the bath. So, yeah, kind of funny scene there. He's prepared and ready to go. So he goes to Soprano's with Carly escorting him, and yeah, he basically sits at the restaurant, cutely looks through the window by standing on his chair because he's sat next to the windows, and also this table has multiple chairs, by the way. It comes an important point later on. But Sherry basically goes in, is seated next to him. Well, it's not seated, but Tails gives her a hug first and then helps her onto the chair. They're pulling it out for her, and then sit together, have a drink, talk, but Sherry's very nervous. But Tails realises that she managed to get one of her suckers stuck to the bottle, which makes her really embarrassed, and she starts to panic. Again, this is a point I made, it's like she's going through this situation where she's ashamed of her body because of the problems it causes like that. And she's got a ball stuck to her bloody tentacle and she can't get it off. These are about a lot of force and making a racket. And Tails is calming her down, and suddenly at the worst possible point, but at the same time, in an amazing way, a bunch of people come in, but it's not strangers. And even though the restaurateurs are looking at her a bit strangely because she's an octopus, mainly octopus traits, these people that come in are actually family. Actually tells his family and friends. And they also know Sherry because they work with her as well, as part of the routine for the work. So they're all like greeting her, and obviously sort of obvious at this point that this was part of the plan. But Tails said that he invited them to show them that we're all the same, we're all in this together. There's nothing to be ashamed of. Then he gives her a scraper sort of thing, which actually separates the sucker from the object or person, whoever it is, whatever it is. And she uses it on the bottle, and Tails grabs her tentacle on the suckers, and for that actually he did that. And he's kind of confused why she used it on the bottle instead. So it's a funny moment there. There's also a funny moment where the special trait that Amy has is actually extreme anger. She says it 2 times in between other people's explanations of what they have going on with them in terms of body and mind. And then she says extreme rage, and Tails basically says that's the same thing as the others. Just dumb things like that. It works. Sherry's obviously crying at this point because it's like such a beautiful moment for her. She's able to be happy and they enjoy the pizza and stuff. And the best part isn't even this, by the way. It's coming up shortly after. I think I'll have to read it word for word. Trying to find it. Yeah, I think and they're exiting the restaurant happy, and also separated hands at this point. Because Tails is being very comforting to Sherry. Also, they have to work together, so he wants to help with the situation. They in turn would help with work. Yeah, they're in the street. It's that night, And Sherry suddenly asks, like, so what's the secret? And tells us what's secret. He tells his head cutely to one side, confusion. And then Sherry says, like, you know, the one where you mistyped your age. She said, finding a short stone wall to sit on behind her. And Tails says, I'm really 7. Do you want to see my pilot's license? And she says, pilot's license? Oh, that's a very grown up thing to have. Fuck's sake. I do think, I don't know, maybe it's just overconfidence in that sense, but I do think that's clever. And they sort of laugh, and she said, I'm joking. Grown ups have a lot more fur than yours, a lot more thicker fur. And she stroked Tails' head with the tip of her tentacle and says, still, that doesn't help how strangers view me because we're so rare and all. And she touches a tentacle from Tails' hand again. Tails immediately puts it back. And she said, Tails? And Tails starts to explain. It doesn't matter how you look to others, it's your heart that counts. And if nobody wants to know how good your heart is, it's their loss, not yours. And they're probably not someone worth keeping around. Because they're probably not someone worth knowing. Yeah, so yeah, Sherry's like again getting very sentimental and sad, but also happy, because this is the exact thing she needed to hear. But Tails' eyes were filled with complete empathy, actually. You could see it in them. Yeah, sort of get a reminder that Tails has also been through some bullying for his own bodily issues, and Amy and Cream were the ones even who accepted him, and then eventually Dash, and then eventually others. And Sherry says, you're right, I never thought of it that way. As she starts to arrange a date with her girlfriend, because she has a girlfriend, which I did mention before actually, but I forgot to mention here. Yeah, she thanks Tails, and as he's saying goodbye, and kisses him on the forehead. Is it forehead or is it cheek? It's cheek, actually. It's like a longer kiss, like 2 seconds, and she left some lipstick on him. Yeah, that's Tails for you. Oh yeah, this is adorable as fuck. Mostly Tails, being a genius, is also kind and empathetic as well. And that's what he gets for being that sort of person. And Sherry says goodbye to the rest of the people behind, all the family. And yeah. And for some reason Amy in the background is taking notes. Total times kissed 499 times. Total kisses by unique people, once 18, now 19. And then Kylie's sort of thinking like, no matter what, he's going to have a great life as an adult too, because of the type of person he is. Yeah, just a bunch of deep stuff here, really. Then Kylie narrates now, for some reason. And she says that meeting those two was the greatest moment of his life, because it literally transformed him and made him who he is now, and the heroes they are. So they all sort of helped each other. And then Tails suddenly says in this narration in the present, Mom, I was going to the toilet. And Tails with an annoyed voice. Let's see how the camera, but Cream and Dash are recording, and Amy was brought off because Amy's technically Tails' security and a bodyguard, and she was bought off with a bribe of a protein bar. So, yeah, that's essentially how Kylie got through and started being a guest on Tails' Tales. Then Kylie explains that she wanted to show the world about Tails' good side and show the extent that he would go to. And she sort of says as well to him that he's an inspiration to people out there to become heroes. And they just sort of have a nice moment where Tails is like tuckered out and not even going to bother arguing. Instead, he just sort of accepts fate and becomes tired. And yeah, Kylie sort of takes him up and sits him on her lap, and then he falls asleep. He tries to say this is embarrassing. The cameras are cut off at that point, and yeah, it just falls asleep, and that's basically where I got up to with this. That's the progress so far, as most of the episodes explained. I probably could have done it shorter, but there you go. I'm quite happy with this so far. It's certainly becoming a series. It's taken a while. It took me a whole day to do 2 episodes. It's fucking crazy. I'm working on it. And I've still got these continuity things to work on. I forgot to say that Chow take on a unique form based on who they admire most, and they can turn out like anyone. And at the Chow Garden, they were actually taking on the form of 2 of the staff in that place. So that was something that they noticed. Also, pet childs are illegal technically, but Korea's basically making an exception for cheese and Benfield too as a result of that, because obviously you can't help this sort of situation. They're just sort of keeping it secret for the most part. Yeah, so that's where I'm up to with this, and still got more to go. I've got episode 6 to write. God knows how many episodes they're going to be, but as I said, it's sort of a series to highlight important lessons in life and acceptance of various circumstances and scenarios, and you just have to tackle them. It's just basically like teaching empathy. It's like Tails sees pain, Tails knows how to overcome said pain, at least as best you can. That's sort of the point. And yeah, weirdly enough, this is sort of a character I wanted Tails to be to begin with. I haven't talked about this much, but the biggest disappointment with Tails going into the meta era was no doubt this, really. The fact he didn't turn out to be more of a hero and more involved, let alone have more story. It's just one of those things, and he had so many potential. What is it? I get distracted by the bard in Final Fantasy XIV. He had like so much potential to expand as a character and have more gimmicks, more traits. And I decided to make him like a, not necessarily like a sport child, but one who's just not giving much of a shit about anything. And yeah, it's really solidified in like Sonic Lost World and stuff when he appeared in the fucking crate, sort of doing a pose. Like, it might have just made that Sonic. Like, seriously. It would have made more sense if you put Sonic there. It's just crazy. It's basically making Tails a character who I want to see in a series like this. Someone who's somewhat quiet but also cute and giving advice and helping people. Which is, it doesn't always feel that way of current Sonic, even. It's not even that deep. You don't really think about it. You know, you've got the older games, which are, in my opinion, deeper than what it is now, where there's actual altruism, and Sonic's like rescuing animals and stuff, and Tails is rescuing animals, and Knuckles as well. That's the point of the old games. It's like stopping Eggman and rescuing the animals, and rescuing as many as you can, and addressing the Eggman problem. That's why I feel like the older games were far better in terms of story. As weird as it sounds, even though there's just pixels on the screen, it's actually a far better story than some of these current ones, the present ones. Even Sonic Adventure was better for that, because it actually had animals, and Sonic Adventure 2 for that matter. Yeah, did Sonic Heroes have some as well? I'm probably remembering that wrong. Anyway, I better move on because I'm fucking busy. I'm pretty much backlogged with a bunch of stuff, so let's move on. So that's something I've been thinking about, because also I'm writing a series, and I started thinking about Sonic Boom again, and the things I disliked about that. And obviously the main sticking point for me was just how bad the writing was. You know, the Tales of Girlfriend one was obviously one of the worst episodes of that series, and probably one of the worst episodes of TV I've ever seen. Because it just wasn't entertaining, it wasn't funny, it wasn't interesting or anything, it wasn't even cute. But the thing with that is, I did have cute moments, I should wrong on that, but it's so cliche as fuck. And I literally remember saying, make it so that Tails has like either a love interest in someone who's a different species, different gender, or just bring back a character that already exists. It's like, what the fuck are you doing? It was such bad writing. I don't understand it, and they even had Shadow in the series, so they had no excuse. That's a crazy thing. And then characters just didn't differentiate that much, and then I often wonder as well, what did people rate it? What did they rate Sonic Boom? I'm going to look this on now. Sonic Boom TV, MTV. Let me guess it's going to be high because people are delusional. No, it's actually 6.9 out of 10. Not too high, but I think it should have been lower. Yeah, like the main thing with me is just absolute stupidity in the show, and every character feels the same. There's a lot of 10 ratings, that's the problem. Something not right there. They made a Sonic Frontiers thing? What the hell? What the fuck is this? Is it games? What? How is all this? I didn't know about this. Chow in space? What? Sonic Frontiers Prologue Divergence? Night the Park, Rise of the Wisp? What the hell is all this? I didn't know this. Wow, literally animation and stuff. Huh. Not really that interested, to be honest, but sure. The Divergence is like about Knuckles, okay. So there's nothing about Tails. So weird. Maybe Tails Tube was like that, but I don't know. I didn't really watch Tails Tube. I'm not really interested, to be honest, because again, modern Tails isn't good. But the rating being high is not a good sign, because one of the problems I find with rating systems is they don't give you the experience. I think to understand if you like something about a series, about a show, a movie, whatever, you need to get the experience, and the spoiler-free one at that. Even then you might not remember spoilers, so it's always worth keeping that in mind. But I rate things based on my experience of the thing that I'm obviously experiencing. So, for example, the recent movie, the Sonic 3 movie, I enjoyed. But there was that problem with obviously the fact that it's not perfect, and even though it's really good, I still think it had some improvements to make. But if people had rated it like above a 9 out of 10, I'd call them delusional. You know, I'd at least give it an 8 out of 10 if I was to rate it. But that's based on my experience. I enjoyed the movie. I wasn't angry all the time. I actually liked it, unlike the other movies. And that's a big difference here. That's why and how I rate things. It's because my experience told me, yes, I like all this, but I don't like some of this. It's not hard to figure out, to be honest. And I genuinely don't understand why people don't use the system. Because I could see people usually rating Sonic Boom a 10 out of 10, which it actually was rated a lot, for some stupid fucking reason. But these people clearly have no clue what a TV series is supposed to be about. They learn how to write the characters, how to write the story, and it really only got the rating because of the humour, which it certainly had moments of it. And to me, it wasn't all that funny either. The parts where it tried to be funny wasn't funny. The parts where it wasn't funny was funny. And there are some good jokes cracked here and there, which I definitely can enjoy. But again, we encounter this problem where that's not the whole experience. If you just cherry pick the jokes of the show and the humour, like even Eggman being this goofball is in his pyjamas and stuff, it's still not going to be a good show. It's going to make you think that it's good because you cherry picked it. You decided to focus on that, but it's not a good show overall. Because that means the story is still flawed. That means the world itself is flawed. The characters are flawed. There are so many different problems that come of this, and really, honestly, just triumphs all these problems here. That's really important to understanding this. So when I see that things have been rated highly, I often wonder, what are you basing that on? Because I don't think it's a fair rating to even rate it based on the best aspects of something. You should rate it on the overall experience. It's a general impression I get from even product reviews nowadays, like on Amazon, I should say, where they're either fake or they're just useless. And the useless ones are like A+, or they just rate it anyway without writing a review. Like, okay, thanks. It's not useful. But that's the problem. It's not an experience, it's a fucking number. People are assigning it an artificial number to this without explaining said number they've given. And essentially giving these things a free pass, as if it for some reason it's fine. Which it's usually not in the case of an Amazon product. There's often always a gimmick or a problem. So this really cannot be ignored. That's why I think it's so important to highlight this and put a spotlight on this issue. Literally. Yeah. I'm trying to think of another story where this happens. There are games where I felt this happened. Like Breath of the Wild, my experience was really negative. Because I saw people say this is the perfect game, this is 10 out of 10, it's 9 out of 10, and I thought, okay, well, let's give it a try. It was on sale. Tried it, not once, not twice, but thrice. And I hated it every single time. I didn't like the lack of handholding, I didn't like the stamina system, didn't like the weapon durability system, I didn't like the exploration because it's boring as fuck and too long. Thanks to the stamina system, and the combat system was janky. So, also they weren't even pointing out objectives and stuff, so you had to discover things just by random. It's so badly designed. And the only good aspects I could see is probably the graphics, but even then it's not perfect. So I just consistently struggle with that sort of thing. As a result, I gave it a negative review. I really couldn't like it, no matter how many times I tried. So my experience of that, of the, 6 or 7 hours I played, accidentally memes there, but okay. But of the time I played it, I just couldn't enjoy it, I couldn't get used to it. There was nothing redeeming about it, and so I literally can give the game a 1 out of 10, because it is just awful and never want to touch it again. And that shows that these rating systems are completely scuffed, because there was no redeeming quality when I looked at the speedrun. There's no redeeming quality when I looked at a full playthrough and saw that, oh, the same problems exist here as well. And the only reason it probably gets a rating like this as well is because there's a detail that people find that then increases the rating, because people think, oh, neat detail, or you could skip to the boss and that's suddenly the best thing ever. It's fucking not. Rate games based on your experience, not these parts you cherry picked. It's absolutely ridiculous. So I'm surprised that the game isn't even given a proper rating. Instead it's just a bunch of fake reviews. That's literally what it is. these reviews aren't genuine. I genuinely can't see how people can even give it such a high rating with so many problems. And even then, if it's not like a problem for you, it's probably a problem for someone else. This is why I talk about experience. So yeah, it frustrates me. That's why I'm so annoyed by this shit. Anyway, I better move on. Stuff to do. Why do I have a topic for you and it's about to get boring? Because I'm talking about board games. Yeah, so I've been doing some research and stuff, and I'm looking into the Deep Rock Galactic board game because I did look through a Google search, finding that there's like many different board games out there that I've never even played. But at this point, I kind of want something familiar, because knowing the state of the world and just how bad I am at learning new things, it's probably better to go with something familiar. And so my idea of this is to buy things that obviously no. I've already got two. I've got a Pokemon version of Monopoly and a hotel board game. Two games I remember very fondly from childhood, and also have a deck of cards just for fun. But it's interesting because at the same time I want more to look back upon essentially and even enjoy. And I think when it comes to board games, I want something that's still familiar rather than entirely brand new. And I think the best way to bridge that gap is to do what I did with Monopoly there, to find something that ties it together. So where Monopoly used to just be about, for example, London and places around it, you can literally make it about anything. It could be about The Simpsons, it could be about Pokemon, it could be about Pornhub. There's probably a variant of that one somewhere, but that's the point of it. You can literally make it about anything, and that's what makes it kind of interesting. Although it's the same game fundamentally, it's just with that different setting, and that can have a sort of impact as well. But I will say I've been looking into something like the Deep Rock Galactic board game, which itself looks okay. The pricing is very fucking off-putting. Frankly, I'm not sure I want to sink in, £300 for the entire set. Like, that's kind of ridiculous. There's a lot of money to put into a board game of all things, which usually costs about £25 at worst now. So that's concerning. Obviously, I don't think they should be priced that much, and they should be looking for ways to reduce it. So yeah, like, the other thing with that is I'm just not sure if it's going to age well. Because Deep Rock Galactic is already a franchise itself. It's got Deep Rock Galactic Survivor, it's got Rogue Core, obviously the base game. But the base game is going to be updated consistently, and the problem we have there is it can age poorly. You know, it's very much one of the best games of all time, and everyone loves it because, one, it's not a greedy game, two, it's not monetized poorly, and three, it's just fun to play. That always has a chance to change with future patches, and we have seen brief controversies even around it before about various elements of the game. I remember some things being overtuned, some things being undertuned, and people were just mixed on it, and still it was controversial. So there are elements where the board game itself probably might not age well, and especially when you're adding expansions to the live service but also the board game, it gets a bit more complicated. And so you just wonder, like, what's the point in this? Like, why should I support this? That often becomes a question for me, and honestly I don't think I will, because again it's too pricey and it's too risky for that matter. Where the risk comes in is obviously the fact it could age poorly. But this leads on to another topic, what I found out recently, and I'm going through it at the moment, not seeing it all. Witcher. I love the Witcher series. and it has so much more potential. I think they did a good job with something like Thronebreaker, although I've not tried it. They did an okay job with Gwent. Wasn't a fan of it though, and they did another game, I can't remember what it was, but I think that was somewhat interesting. But looking back on it, like The Witcher would age better as a board game, and it turns out they recently announced a Witcher board game called Witcher Legacy, which explores the Witcher lore, which we don't see in the games, or even books for that matter, and gives them a story, which is great. Honestly, I think that's a good idea. It's a different way to explore a story and sort of in line with what The Witcher is about too. Of course, my only concern with this is, one, it's a crowdfunded thing, which, as we've seen before with The Witcher, and I've not really talked about this before for some reason, but there's a massive controversy when they're kickstarting a manga series for The Witcher, and it's like, didn't you just make so much money from this? Why are you crowdfunding? It's not even a fan project, so what? Well, that's the craziest thing about it. And if it was a fan project and they're like posting on social media saying like, hey guys, we found this amazing fan project, we're going to support this, and that's fine. I'd support that, and that's also helping a smaller creator out. But the problem that we have now is with even The Witcher Legacy and this manga that appeared, they were crowdfunded through CD Projekt Red. I mean, they were the primary party involved here. It's just like, what the fuck are you thinking? This is stupid. You might as well just give this off to a different company, have it crowdfunded through them, and then see what happens. That's a far better option, and I'd actually support it then, but the problem is, because it's CD Projekt Red, who has a track record now, since Cyberpunk, for being essentially rushing things and making a lower quality game as a result, we don't really have any want or need to support that. It's a big problem. So I don't see myself supporting The Witcher Legacy even. I could buy it if it releases and it's cheap, but as far as I'm aware, the support for it isn't very big, and I don't think many people are going to be that invested. But also, let's not forget something. There's already a cookbook, and the mini games are doing the same thing. They're already doing a cookbook for most other games, and my problem with cookbooks, even though I'm not read any to be fair, use any, I don't want to, I'm so fed up with cooking, is they probably just have the same recipes as every fucking thing else. At a certain point, when Final Fantasy has a cookbook, when Monster Hunter Wilds has a cookbook, when Genshin Impact has a cookbook, when it has, with some Hong Kong Star Rail gets a cookbook, which would be interesting honestly, because it's not really food. Honestly, that'll be the only cookbook I'm interested in, if I'm being honest, but anyway, they'll just be the same base ingredients, and they're just asking you to cut things into a random shape with a technique they found, or what? Well, that's the only variation on it, and then the recipe is just the same. It's like, I don't know, you're making like a curry, same base ingredients. You've got turmeric, you've got garam masala, you've got like curry powder, you've got curry leaves, cardamom and stuff. It's just all the same shit, and they're not doing anything different. Where they can add a little twist in their own way, make it completely different, and add like a Chinese sort of spice like star anise or something, instead of cardamom. And that'll add some sort of twist to it that you haven't really seen. It's like, oh, this sort of makes sense for the game itself it's referencing, and obviously the sort of product this is, the sort of thing they're making. That's why I don't really like the cookbooks. It's just the same old fucking things. And the only unique case, I guess, is like, you do get dishes from other cultures, but even then, there's no guarantee that it's just going to be tasting nice. That's my biggest worry with this sort of thing. More so than the fact it's probably not vegan friendly, which in itself is a big problem because we shouldn't be incentivising animal product consumption in this day and age. Yeah, these cookbooks are uncreative enough to say that you need to use like 90% meat and 10% plant-based ingredients, even though 10% plant-based ingredients is what gives it the fucking flavour to begin with. Like, good job you've cooked yourself. Wait, I don't think that's how that goes. Anyway, it's just a random discussion really. Take it with a grain of salt or sugar or pepper or cayenne pepper and then put it in your eyes. Let's move on. Also, don't do that. So I just solved one of the toilets. Fucking minor problems. Yeah, impressive, I know. And I've also thought about 3D printers as well as a result of it, and about other things in my life. So, when I'm in the toilet, obviously I'm in there a lot. It's probably my most visited place on earth, which is unfortunate. I just, I struggle a bit because it's like overwhelming at times and it's boring as well. And you know, I don't want to fucking mess around trying to get some of these toilet rolls on the fucking holder, because we don't actually have a proper holder here for some stupid reason. But I make do with this little one that just sits there. You know, it's not optimal, but it gets the job done, at least. But then I was sort of wondering, like, I remember having, obviously, toilets where there's a holder on the wall, I mean. And typically, that's how you're supposed to have it, just to begin with. So, people really should know where this is going, probably. I don't know. You know, I'm used to having it on the wall, and that's the difference, I think. Because I think having this ground one is annoying as fuck, and yet I'll miss the reloading aspect of it. Because it's like, there's these bits so you can stack the toilet roll underneath, like two or three times. 4 if you're daring. But it's a good system, I've got to admit. But then I'll miss that if I go with a wall-mounted system, where you only have one toilet roll. I don't know if this exists, to be fair, and I expect it doesn't, because every time I've looked for something similar to this sort of situation, looking for the same thing, doesn't show up, which ties into a 3D printer eventually. But it actually turns out that the problem I've solved actually addresses multiple things, and it can even help someone like the elderly, or even just caregivers and stuff. So, what I discovered was actually a wall-mounted system with a longer sort of stem, this way, like it's an L-shaped sort of thing, but the holder is basically like that, up until the end where it's a bit more curved. But the point with this is that the L-shape serves to allow for stacking toilet rolls. So on this L-shape, and I'll explain how it mounts as well, because there's a clever niche for this too. Basically, I'd allow it to stack multiple times, like as much as anyone wants, like different sizes. So you could stack like what, 3 to 6 toilet rolls on this single holder, and then you've got one already there, so it's like 7. So it's that amount plus 1, and that'd be so useful, just for quick tactical reloads on the toilet roll. It sounds stupid, but I do think it's somewhat clever, in all honesty, because that's the point of it. You know, that's what it's there to do. And I think it would be useful to have a system somewhat like this, because it would probably help people. But this L-shaped thing, when you stack it, you put the toilet rolls on and you push it up. I say that, but that ties into the issue, the thing after, not the issue. So you push it up and it stacks, and it keeps the other one in place because of the little odd shape at the end of it. So gravity is essentially not pushing it. So yeah, there'd also be something there as well, like it would just hit the groove at the bottom of it, and it's like a wired system, so it's similar to many other holders, or maybe even just a standing one. There's like 2 wires and they just allow you to move things on and off it. And so this ties into the next thing, where you might wonder, well, if you're doing it from upside down, well, actually I didn't even describe it as upside down, but yeah, it's upside down basically. Not upside down, no, it's just still an L shape. What am I saying? But it's still an L shape, and you know, it's using gravity to put it in its place essentially, to reload the next one and then the next one after that. So how do you reload it more easily and accessibly? I think you can use probably a mount that rotates it to make it rotate so it's facing upwards, so it's upside down. It's an upside down L. And you can use that to basically reload it more easily. And yeah, like, it solves the problem of having to fight gravity. And yeah, it's something silly, but it works, I suppose. But that's just like a more convenient way. And also with the rotational system, as I decided on this rather than it sort of sticking out. Because sticking out would mean that it comes off the wall a bit and yanks on it, but the rotation system would keep it more in place. So it's only against the wall at all times. So I think that could solve some of the problems there. I know with the elderly, it could save them bending over getting shit, and people in wheelchairs, no doubt it could probably help them too. There's so many different uses for this, I think. Which is why I think it could solve a few problems that we currently face in society and with our elderly. Trying to think. I think that's all I thought about with this. Like, there's no doubt some things to iron out with this kind of product. Obviously, it's very niche, as I said. For someone like me, it would be handy because I'm fed up of like leaning over on the toilet where it can fucking hurt because of ulcerative colitis and stuff. It's just not comfortable. So that sort of thing can even help someone like me, I think, and other people in my situation too. So yeah, that's good, I suppose. But then I have to talk about 3D printers, and I've been interested in these for quite a while. But I haven't gotten one simply because I just find that I might have too many issues with it. And that comes about because of really the reality of a 3D printer, which is like keeping it clean and stuff and reloading it and whatever. There's so many different things to consider with it. But I do want a 3D printer, believe it or not. And that's mainly because I find problems in almost my everyday life that can be solved with a 3D printer. And this is by printed components that can help keep things stable. So for example, on my bed, I have quite a few plushies on there. It's just one of those things, I decorate it. And they fall off because of my weight. I'm so heavy on the mattress that it literally shifts them. There's like a black hole, I suppose, and I am the black hole. I am become black hole. And yeah, it annoys me because they sometimes fall off and onto the floor. It's like, oh my god, sorry, didn't mean to do that. And yeah, that sort of becomes a struggle. So that's frustrating as hell. And I want to resolve that problem, but when I looked it up and looked for something similar to what I'm thinking of, which is like a wall system or even like a belt sort of thing, I couldn't find it. It didn't exist. So there was this problem of finding that this situation, I couldn't exactly address this problem. Where had I had a 3D printer, speak English there, I could have printed something and put it together and had it solve this problem. You know, look at my bed right now, like, it's like, okay, it's like a fucking chair. I could probably print a new chair as well. But that's another story. But it's like 30 centimeters where it can fall off, and there are 30 centimeters where I can stop it from falling off, and I don't even need a tall one for that matter, and in fact I can make it adjustable with a 3D printer. But 30 centimeters of materials and this wall thing, but with a thing that fits under the mattress so that it doesn't move that much, so the weight is still on it and they can't actually fall off, that would just save so many times, so many problems. I don't know. You sort of see my point. I'm basically trying to put up a wall. I'm trying to stop them from escaping. And just stop them from falling on the floor and shit. Yeah, it's a small problem, but a somewhat bigger solution, which is frustrating. Because again, I need a 3D printer. And that still annoys me, but there's also something else I thought about. I'm not sure if people remember the part in the podcast where I mentioned a life hack about putting sponges around the sink. I could print something out to that measurement with overhang where it just reflects the fucking water off the part of the sink that's having this problem. Literally, that's one of the things with a 3D printer. I can design something, I can make it work for the scenario. I can even have something for like the soap, for example, like a little slope or something with some grates in it. But, it's like I can print out these mini pieces and that's perfect, literally. That's sort of the benefit of a 3D printer. That's kind of why I want one. So many niche problems it can solve, and even like my fucking keyboard, for example, like the feet have come off it and they won't stay attached. They keep coming off. It's a Corsair. Is it K55? I think it says. Is that K80 maybe? KT. Can't remember what it is, and there's a lot of dirt on my keyboard. Fucking hell. I'm not sure where that comes from. Eats crisps. But yeah, it's been alright. It's a refurbished keyboard. It's worked. It's nice and quiet for the most part. You can barely hear it clicking. There's a bit of it. But I mainly want to give it proper feet because it's lacking feet, obviously. And it's a bit uncomfortable to type on at times because it's lacking the feet to keep it up. So I need to address that somehow, which is kind of frustrating. But again, a 3D printer, I could print out these little feet that go around the side and maybe even dig into the part of it, or I can just attach like a rubber thing underneath it so it solves that problem of slipping. And it'll just work. The weight keeps it in place. It's heavy enough, fucking hell, like, there's a good like kilogram of weight, which is kind of crazy. But yeah, that solves the problem there. Again, 3D printer to the rescue. There's another thing where I want to store my a drawing tablet underneath this wooden thing that I have that keeps my monitor propped up. I mean, I don't want that. I mainly want somewhere that I can put my drawing tablet and other microphone, the alternative, and a notepad and a mirror that isn't taking up this much space. And I could probably design something using 3D printer software or something like that to completely address that problem and basically get under wraps and literally protect this stuff from dust and debris and keep it somewhere reasonable. But again, that's another reason I want a 3D printer. As you can see, it's all sort of pointing towards it, and even like cable management, for fuck's sake. But one of the things I got recently was like a cable box, and the cable box basically will hide your wires and your plug sockets, and it's good. I like the one I've got now, but I think it could be better. It could be perhaps more compact, but I can also make a stand if I ever get a TV, for example, where I can sit the TV on this stand and fit things underneath it, like my clothes. There's a sort of danger to that, and I think I'd rather have the TV on the wall. It's probably a bit safer, to be honest. But it does solve a problem. And then I hear of issues that people I know have, for example, and if they have something I can address with a 3D printer, then I probably could. Let's say there's a leg loose on a chair or something, I could find a shoe that fits on it. Rather not a loose leg, but one that's shorter than the other. And you solve that problem with it rocking. Like, really, it'd be a fucking saviour. It's just, I guess it takes time to learn the software. That's the only problem with this. And it takes time to print it, and obviously it might be noisy as well, which is another problem. But I think it would be useful to have, no doubt. I think there are generally a lot of benefits to something like this. And that's sort of why I want one. And it's going to be one of those cases, I think, where I think the moment I get one and I realise like something important, I realise, oh, where was my life without this? It's sort of what people say about other certain things, and that's important too. And no doubt. I think it's an interesting scenario for sure. I think not easy to address, but it's something. Yeah, that's the topic. I better move on, but also might do an outro, so yeah, it's gone on for a while, so thanks for listening. Yeah, see you on another time.